Hello, welcome back to the Off-Grid family. Today I'm going to start building a project for Crystal. She does all the gardening now because of my health problems, and I want to make her a sort of greenhouse kind of propagator, like large propagator kind of thing. I've got some old windows and I've got some very, very bad, very old wood. It should last possibly 2 seasons before I'd need to do something with it, but it's all I've got at the moment. It will take me a long period of time to build this again because of my health problems, but obviously I'm going to edit it all together to look like it's done over a very short space of time. But please take into consideration there's going to be, changes of seasons possibly. I just don't know how long this is going to take. So it might be that it's, various different days and various different climates kind of thing. So if you do notice that it goes from very glorious sunshine to very poor rain and whatever, just know that it's obviously been a large quantity of time in between, and I can't do anything about that kind of continuity. But as I say, I'm going to be using recycled windows, I'm going to be using recycled wood, I may even be using recycled screws depending on what I've got lying around, but hopefully the majority of this is just going to be all recycled stuff. It will also be thrown together in such a way that I'm trying to prove that it doesn't have to be everything measured out to within a millimetre of something else. I'm going to be not using a tape measure very much, if at all, and I'm just going to build it together because I want you guys to see that you don't have to have all the right equipment, you don't have to spend all the time in the world making something exact, especially something like this for in the garden. It just needs to function, and a lot of my projects get to that point where they just need to function, and they do. So yeah, anyway, before I forget, I'd just like to thank David and Paul. You're my patrons and I really do appreciate every bit of support you've given. You guys are awesome, I really do appreciate it. Anyway, let's get on.
Okay, so these are the things I'm going to be using: a circular saw, drill bits and various other bits, and some screws. That's basically it, and obviously a workbench. I will probably need other things, but at the moment this is all. These are the old windows I've got. I got them from someone dropping them off at the tip. I just asked if I could have them and they were quite polite about it. And as you'll see in front, some old wood. This is quite bad quality. I start off by removing any fixings that would have held them into the wall and move on to the next stage. Here I simply just measure the wood to the innermost parts of the windows I'm using, and I'm going to have 4 for the roof, so I just measure it up, make a cut, and that's it. As you saw, I roughly measured it, and then I'm going to cut one piece out and then measure that against the other piece, so we've got a piece for the top and bottom. Now I do the same for the sides, but now I have to take into consideration the actual width of the original wood I used, so I just measure up to the edge of each piece of the wood. Once they're cut out, I use a rough piece of the wood to measure up against the piece of wood I'm using to know where to actually drill some holes for the screws that will attach this frame together. So all that's left now is to drill some pilot holes and then add the screws ready to actually attach to the other piece of wood. Now you just need to screw your frame together. This is easier with clamps, but I just did it by hand. Okay, and once the framing's done for the roof, I want to start on the front. So there will be windows for the roof and the front, so as much sunlight as possible can get in. Due to this one being lengthways, I've put an extra beam in the centre. But this is, apart from that, is exactly the same as the way I've done the other frame for the roof. Okay, I've made 2 large poles for the back, which is just going to be wood. There's no light coming in there. And I didn't have any wood big enough, so I've just put these together. They're about the right size. It doesn't really matter, as I say. Now, to get them the right size, I just placed them against the roof and I cut them down to size. It was as simple as that. No measuring involved at all. These are going to be the side pillars, and I'm doing exactly the same again as I did. I'm just making a mark with the piece of wood the same size as I'm going to be using, and this way I know exactly where to drill my holes. It's just a super simple little trick. You'll always get your holes in the right place if you do it this way. Due to using scrap wood and not having the right size, I cut a few bits to the right size for this, and basically we're just going to fill those gaps. Okay, I've just placed everything standing up, and it is basically what it's going to look like. As you'll notice, the front at the bottom is longer slightly, but that's not a problem. I'll move it so it's equal on each side. And then this bit here is the roof, and this will lift up like so, and this will all be filled with the windows like I showed you at the beginning. I have glued and nailed these down and given them a preliminary sanding, but just bear in mind that there could be warping if they get too wet, etc. So just nail them down really well. Here I'm going to be making a wall out of feather edge boarding that I've got left over, and at first I'm just going to make it up to the front bit, but I eventually want it to be able to reach all the way from the bottom to the top here. But yeah, as I say, it will only reach the front at the moment. Now I just need to cut off all the excess at the front here. Now I've dug up all the earth, just the top layers, so I can lay some slate, some old roofing slate that I got, again, second hand from someone who was just given away on Facebook. Okay, they're laid. It's no work of art, but it will do. It just gives us a solid base to put plants and stuff on. I probably will make some shelving to go in there as well, but this is a start. Just to orientate yourselves, this is the top back. Now I'm just going to add the hinges here, and I'm just roughly adding them. The wood is so warped, I don't think it's going to matter. As long as the hinges are aligned with each other, I'm not really bothered. I'm just going to whop them in, making sure that they're basically aligned with each other so that when I decide to open and close it, they're not fighting against each other. Okay, that done, and it opens and closes absolutely fine, and they are, as I say, not fighting against each other. This clip shows you just how warped the wood is. The top bit is so C-shaped, let's say, that the front looks like it's much longer on the right hand side than the left. Okay, I've taken the top off again now, and I've placed all of the glass into it, and now I'm going to start screwing all the screws into it to basically hold the windows in place, and this will give it the structural stability that I'm after. To do this, I drill holes into the actual wood and the window, minding the glass obviously. I then clamp the actual window and the wood together so that when I screw the screw in, it doesn't move away from the wood. I use 4 screws on the widest part of each end windows and then 2 on the shortest part of each of the windows, just to make sure they are held in place. I put the 2 front windows in, and this is fairly straightforward. Same thing, just screwing them in everywhere I can just to make sure they're solid in there. And then I place the lid back on the roof. I have put 2 pieces of wood either side as like support battens because I've decided against actually putting any more wood up the side to make it easier to water the things that are in there because the roof is quite heavy. Right, there it is done. I'm just holding it up with a couple of pieces of wood at the moment and just putting a few bits and bobs in there for now. The one negative is that it is very heavy, the roof. If I could have done it lighter with different glass, I would have, but I just didn't have the option to. So if you are going to do this, I try and look for some lighter windows than I used.
Okay, there you go. As I said, it's, over a long period of time. It actually took me nearly 2.5 months. I can only do stuff when I've got George to help me and when I can, physically do it. So there was a lot of time, there was a lot more time not doing it than there was doing it, put it that way. For an able-bodied person, you're looking at probably 2 afternoons. It would have been very, very simple. It's, there's not very much. There was a few bits of lifting when it came to like the windows and so on, which you may have needed help. But other than that, it was very straightforward, very easy work. Anyway, I really do hope you enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you watching it. Thanks again. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.